our playbook is very much let's get people to know who you are. Let's get people to know what problem you solve, and then we focus on things like conversion and referrals.
Welcome to another episode of Autodidactas podcast. Today I have Aneesh with me. Aneesh is on the forefront of B2B influencer marketing, content creators on LinkedIn, and today we're gonna dive deep into this world. So, yeah, I'm excited to have you here, Anish. If you wanna introduce yourself, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, of course. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. I love doing these things, talking about where B2B marketing and influencer marketing is going, especially on LinkedIn. I'm the founder of the Wishley Group. I rep 17 of some of the best creators in the B2B space, especially sales, marketing, RevOps, and HR tech. These are the four big categories that we operate in right now. We're bringing in about 150 to 200K a month in campaign spend for all of our influencers. We've got a playbook that gets us about a 90% renewal rate from brands that pilot with us. So we've got some best practices down, and happy to get into that today.
That's very exciting, and I love also to talk about all of these topics because, for me at least, B2B influencer is kind of new in this space. Like, so if you can explain what's happening right now in the space of B2B content creation, and how did you identify the opportunity to work with influencers, especially on LinkedIn and B2B?
Yeah, so my background's media sales. I used to work for Pinterest and Coca-Cola, some of the other bigger companies, and I was always working on big brands like Cartier, Nintendo, Adidas, PetSmart. So I've worked with some big players before, and I've always like, especially even at Pinterest, when you take a look at what some of the tier one social media agencies and social media platforms are doing. That's really where the concept of social media influencer came from, right? You take a look at influencers on Instagram, Meta, Twitter, all these different places. People start buying into influencers because of entertainment usually. When you take a look at LinkedIn, you have a lot of subject matter experts in this space. You have a lot of people that are building influence because they are technically good at their job. So for sales influencers, they were giving out sales tips. Marketing people were telling people how to build better landing pages. So the list goes on in terms of how you could become a B2B creator. When I came into this space, I realized you have all these people who are so good at their technical vocation, and they have all these influence, but they weren't really doing anything on the brand side of things. They weren't looking at building their media kits out, their following, building newsletters, all these different things that they should be doing in other like other influencers are doing. So I saw this white space, and I sort of got in here, and I was like, hey, there's no one talking to these creators who have influence. And it started off with one creator, Kevin Dorsey. I would not be here without KD. And then from KD to 17 creators later, it's been a fun journey so far.
That's awesome. Because, yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is a platform that, I don't know, but I read something like on LinkedIn, like 98% of the people or 97% of the people that are on the platform, they just consume content. And only it's really like the 2% that create content.
Yeah, it's the only social media platform where the creation ratio is disproportionate to the number of followers. So when you go on Instagram, when you go on all these other platforms, you've got so many people who are taking pictures, creating content, right? But on LinkedIn, because of the way it's built, you have all these, we call them lurkers. Like people just come onto the platform to digest information. Now, LinkedIn as a platform has evolved over the last 5 to 10 years. It started off as like a job hunting website or a job hunting platform. So brands always dismissed it because they're like, everybody on LinkedIn is just looking for jobs. They don't have discretionary dollars to spend on my brand. Now, LinkedIn's a place people come to for education, for learning, to develop as a professional. You actually have the keeners. I call them the keeners, the people in front of the classroom who put their hands up. We have the keeners of all these career oriented people coming in to master their craft. these are the top performers at the companies they work at. So not only do they make decisions for B2B technologies, these are also people who make six figures and can buy nice things or more things. So I think brands are waking up to that now because LinkedIn has done a really good job of becoming that next social channel to develop as a professional.
Yeah, for sure. And like, for example, for people that are starting into LinkedIn and want to create content on LinkedIn, how do you approach creating content like for B2B? How do you develop that brand?
Yeah, I think a big thing after studying all my creators' playbooks, I got very lucky. I get to study what these guys do all the time. First thing you want to do is write out three of your biggest content pillars. So for some people, it might be I'm an expert in sales, but specifically, what part of sales are you good at? Is it the cold calling side, landing the meeting? Are you more of a closer? Just write down specifically three things that you're good at, you like talking about. Now, they don't all need to be technical things. A lot of the times people tell me they just want to talk about technical stuff on LinkedIn. That is actually I would discourage that. I would actually encourage you to bring out some of your social stuff, your personal values, bring those stories to light. If you're a car enthusiast or maybe you like to travel or whatever it is, people connect with people before they believe you as a technical expert. So I would say you need a balance of three things, and putting those three content pillars out and testing what's working. There's different mechanisms you can use to really get your content out. So you could put out content that solves problems. You could put out content that tells people about how you transform from 0 to 1. A lot of people don't. A lot of people just rush to the end of someone's story. You kind of want to talk about what you did before and why you transformed, and then how. And then the social piece. Remember, LinkedIn is a social media platform. You need to make sure you're keeping things light in the social side of things so people can connect with you on a personal level as well. So, most of the content you see on LinkedIn is very solve oriented. Here's 5 ways to do X. You need to be able to speak to those things, but you also need the other things as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sounds like it's no different than other like social media platform in the sense that the way that you create content and you talk to people, like for example, you have to think about hooks and how to get the audience invested in whatever it is that you're telling your story. But it's really more focused on like business or the things that you're good at. And more now than ever, I started seeing more video on LinkedIn. Like,
Mhm.
what's the deal with video? Are you noticing like more and more people are doing video? How do you see that trend evolving?
Yeah, video is blowing up on LinkedIn, short form vertical video in particular. Um, that's doing really well on LinkedIn right now. The reason behind that is I believe LinkedIn's product team has seen all these micro learning clips starting to make their way. Like they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube Shorts, they're on Instagram. People are actually heading to these platforms to learn. And I believe LinkedIn wants to be the authority on learning on social. So they're really opening up the algorithm to give a lot of impressions and views to those videos right now. So if you're a creator and you have not started experimenting with at least 2 to 3 video posts per week, I highly recommend you do that.
Okay, because yeah, it makes sense. That's on the roadmap. I would say, like for LinkedIn, what's coming next is gonna be video, definitely for sure. I've seen more people do this kind of like reels or talking to camera naturally without a script or anything like that.
Right.
And I've seen so many posts that work so well. I wanted to ask you, do you have any case study or success story with any creator that you have worked with?
Plenty. Yeah, we have a 90% renewal rate with all the brands that we work with. We're running about like 30, 40 different brand campaigns a month right now. That number is going to double in the next couple months. The case studies they range depending on what the goals are, but I just had one client bring in like a $200,000 deal for one of our brands just because they knew somebody on a referral, right? And these brands were not paying this creator $200,000, so their return is massive. They're already going to renew with this creator because just from that one intro. So that's the other thing with these creators, because they've been on LinkedIn for so long and they've been so credible. When they make a phone call to make a referral, it goes a really long way for these brands.
Wow, so really like perception is like, I mean, if you're a content creator on LinkedIn, you need to have like a very good reputation, and because I assume that word travels pretty fast in this
Yeah,
space.
yeah, and it's funny that most of the creators on LinkedIn have started off probably just being digital only, and now with the reemergence of live events, you see creators going to some of these live conferences, live events, live meetups, and you actually get to meet people and see how they're really like, not behind their screens, more in
That's
person.
awesome. Yeah.
And sometimes it's awesome, and sometimes you're like, oh my god, did that person actually just do that or say that? So word does travel very fast for good and bad. And definitely something you want to keep in mind if you're a creator and you're in a public professional setting. Just be on your best behavior.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what are some of the misconceptions that brands have that you've noticed when it comes to working with B2B influencers? Like, do they talk about, oh yeah, but how am I gonna know if it's gonna work, or how do I track it, or the attribution and all of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean the misconceptions for LinkedIn are like there are some skeptics like, will this work? Do LinkedIn influencers actually have influence? But that's more on the early stage of that conversation. Those that end up signing up, their biggest asks are, what they would want to know anywhere. Like, how do we know that this is driving pipeline? How do we know that this is driving opportunities for our sales team? And those conversations, I candidly, it really depends on how they measure things, right? I have seen a lot of folks starting to combine, like, let's say you host a webinar as part of one of your activations. A lot of companies are beginning to link whoever shows up to the webinar into their own pipeline. And they give it like 60 days. So 60 days after a webinar, did so and so come into our pipeline? Or did someone from their company come into our pipeline? That is one way that we've seen people starting to measure lower funnel. Upper funnel is a lot easier to track, right? Engagements, likes,
Mm.
impressions, all those types of things. But the lower funnel has always been difficult. So we are trying to get creative on how to measure that right now.
Yeah, which is a little bit more complicated, right? Because you have to track like the opportunities generated off of that partnership or that deal and everything.
Right.
It's not the same as D2C, which is more like conversions, instant conversions. Um, so, what would you say? Like, what are the lessons B2B can learn from D2C and D2C brands?
Yeah, I think a lot of D2C brands have spent so much money building brands, unless they're, novel e-commerce sites. But a lot of the times when you look at, bigger D2C executions, and I saw this at Pinterest, a lot of these brands have a lot of brand equity already. People know who they are, people know what they do, so it's easier to run conversion campaigns. When people don't know who you are, and more importantly, they don't know what problem you solve, especially in the B2B setting, you need to do some work to build consideration and awareness. You have to think about upper and mid funnel metrics before you can get efficient conversion coming in. No one's going to be able to buy if they don't know what you do or solve for, right? And that upfront education, B2B marketers, I've seen that being such a struggle sometimes. They're like, they've been tasked just to go get pipeline, go get meetings, go get this, but no one's going to do that if people don't understand what it is you do and how you solve problems. You have to be able to enter people's consideration set, and that's just not happening with a lot of brands. So
Before we jump back into today's conversation, I wanted to take a quick moment to invite you to subscribe to the newsletter. Each edition is packed with actionable insights pulled directly from the episodes on the podcast, along with the latest developments in AI, marketing, and trends. By signing up, you'll get fresh takes on how innovators across industries are solving real-world problems. Plus, you'll get to see what's working and what's not. So, if you want even more value delivered straight to your inbox, consider subscribing to the newsletter. It's free, it's insightful, and it will keep you one step ahead. Now let's get back to the episode.
And that's just not happening with a lot of brands. So our playbook is very much let's get people to know who you are. Let's get people to know what problem you solve. And then we focus on things like conversion and referrals. But those things take time. Like, so whenever I talk to B2B marketers, I tell them this is not going to happen overnight for this big contract you want to sell that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. You need to build out the pipeline and to build out your story so that you're able to grow efficiently, not just have these spikes once in a while.
Yeah, so the play would be like build authority first, make sure you have like nailed down who you serve, what you do for what kind of people, and once the ball gets rolling and you start to see like consistent growth, that's when you come in and you start working with other people like brands, stuff like that, looking for partnerships.
Exactly. No, you nailed that. So the whole key is to like take whatever positioning and brand priorities you have and then marrying that with the story arcs of what the creator is known for on the influencer side. And that's where the biggest struggle happens for a lot of brands. There's a big part that's missed. Brands will hire influencers without thinking, okay, what will the influencer actually say that's already natural with their organic audience messaging? What
Mm,
most brands do is they send over a script saying, hey, can you say something like this?
yeah.
And then that's where things fall apart. So there has to be a huge step in the middle of quality control where you're marrying the story arcs instead of just saying, this person has a lot of reach and a lot of engagement. I want to hire them. Great. Transactions done. Here's a post. It comes across very transactional. That's why it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, I've noticed that too, and especially for people that are creative. Like I consider myself a creative, and I'm sure for a lot of people it's like this. But whenever you're put into a box, it's kind of like difficult, or it takes out the element of play. Whenever you're creating something for anybody else, like us creatives, we like to experiment with ideas, have our own thoughts, opinions, be flexible. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider when brands are working with creative people or influencer. Have you noticed this too with your clients?
Oh man, all the time. So we call this the creator's dilemma, right? So creators who are trying to make a side hustle work, or maybe they're full-time creators now, they have an art. This is their art. The way they post, the way they do, what do you call it? Videos, blogs, all this stuff. So when a brand enters the forefront and there's money involved, brands feel like we've earned the right or bought the right to have creative control.
Mm,
No matter how many brands tell us, you do it, it's your way. We always get some sort of prescriptive feedback. It's just the way the game works. So the creator's dilemma is how far do I compromise what I'm known for to finally earn a paycheck that feeds me to do this, right? And that's why I think we've seen a lot of successes. We have a really good way to marry and matchmake different brands with different creators. We know certain brands, how they operate, will not vibe well with like a super creative. We know that. So we have to be very selective of which brands we bring to that type of creator. On the other hand, you have creators who are very flexible. They're like, hey, you know what? Like, I understand this is a business service. We're going to be talking about this, and this, no problem. So it does get to a point where you need to understand both spectrums. There's a brand spectrum on creative control, and then a creator spectrum on how much control they want. That's the magic. That's why it's so important to have like an agent or somebody representing you, because brands and creators don't have this conversation very well. It's very
mhm.
personal, right?
I see. So you guys come in and act uh, like the agent, basically. Is
Yeah,
what I'm assuming.
exactly. So that's what the job is, as people's brand agents, like for all the creators we work with. We know what they like, we know what they don't like, we know how they like to work. Period. We take that over to any of the brands that we speak to when they want to run influencer campaigns in a specific category. So we marry the styles, the culture checks, all those things. It's not just can this person post for me.
Hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that go into making all of this happen, like the campaigns and everything. So I've noticed this too on LinkedIn. Like, if companies want to start posting like on the company page, would you advise that companies start posting on company page, or would you advise something more focused on founder-led content, for example?
I think you need a mix of both. Like if you're a company, what we've seen in the LinkedIn ecosystem is people like doing business with people. So if you have a faceless organization, unless you're like this, it's like a unicorn one off, everyone's talking about you, everyone needs you, everyone loves you, like fine. You don't really need to prioritize the face of the company, but a lot of times people like to link something to an identity of sorts. So I would say bolster your company page, but try to bring some life to it with some faces that people can connect with. Um, that's that's one of the best ways to get the voice. Like if you take a look at Elon Musk or even some of the biggest people, they have more followers in their company page, right? People want to know who the leaders are. People want to know what their values are. Is this someone I can work for? Is this someone I can buy something from? Um, all those things matter, even at the biggest companies in the world. So why not at the smallest companies, right?
Yeah, totally. Um, I don't know if you've seen, but there's a brand that came into my mind that's called Fermat. Fermat, I think they're called. They're
Okay.
like building ads like as if they were landing pages, but they did something like kind of out of the box for their launch. They created like this whole suite of like physical products. So like shirts, caps. There was a bag too, and they presented everything with video, and it really got very good traction, and people were starting commenting and everything. But I was amazed because it's so different what they're doing, like introducing a physical product for a B2B software. So I think that's great that brands start experimenting with
Mhm.
this stuff. Like they were mixing like D2C world with like B2B.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and we've seen that work really well as well. Like one of the teams that I work with very closely is the AMP folks under Morgan Ingram, and our entire production team are people who've worked with the NFL, the NBA, Sony, Chick-fil-A. That like we brought in the D2C flair for all the production that we do with clients to the whole B2B world, right? And I think that D2C combination of like how people like to buy as individuals when they're not working is still how they like to buy when they're doing business professional stuff. So making sure you can tell that story from a D2C angle is probably one of the best things for marketers to study. It's like what's working in pop culture, what's working when people aren't working. Um, those types of things do matter in even corporate B2B purchasing buying patterns.
Right. So for example, let's say um, I wanted to start posting more on LinkedIn, right? I want to become a micro influencer.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the topics or some of the things that you've seen that work best? Like what kind of posts work best, for example, in the B2B world?
Yeah, so right now, some big categories that are doing well. Concepts like remote work. There's a big debate whether you can return to office or you like to work remote or hybrid.
I've seen those.
Remote work's a big one. Another one is negotiations for promotions or job salary increases, or finding a new job. How do you negotiate the salary part? Like those negotiations is a really big one. Another one, mental health. That is a topic that across the board, especially since COVID, has been a massive topic as well. I'd say those are your big three to draw in the widest amount of audiences. And then you need to supplement that with your core, like 20 to 30% of your content should be what you want to be known for technically. So put 60% out, 60, percent out of like that wider stuff I just talked about, culture, remote work, negotiations, things like that. 30% should be on like your technical vocation. Like for me, it'd be sales or creator marketing, things like that. And then 10% is like your personal social stuff. experiment with that mix 60-30-10, and then based off of how it performs with your audience, you tweak that number.
Mhm. I see. So yeah, it's kind of like dividing what you're good at, like what you want to get known for, and personal stuff, which I've seen also like personal stuff work really well on LinkedIn.
It does
It's
really well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's relatable. Like people like it. Um, but yeah, sometimes LinkedIn creators get a little bit of hate because you know how it is. Like you start telling a story about I don't know whatever, and then at the end of the post, people put like, "This is what it taught me about XYZ," which I find it kind of funny.
Yeah. I think people are having a lot of fun with it. I think some people have been doing that with their engagements or weddings and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think some of it can get cringe. You have to do it, intelligently. Some of it are just poking fun at the other ones who are doing it. They're trolling them a bit. But yeah, I think you just need to be smart about, like, there's some very personal things that you're just sharing to be personal. Making a business story out of everything may not always work out in your favor.
yeah, exactly. So it's about experimentation, right, and see what sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is next for you? How do you see the landscape evolving on B2B? Like, even more people trying to jump in is going to make everything more competitive.
Exactly. I think there's going to be a lot more scrutiny coming in from governing bodies. So you've got the FTC. You've got all these different groups that are going to come in to see. There's all these advertising rules that creators need to abide by that on Instagram and Meta are very prevalent. I think LinkedIn's sort of been in a gray box for a bit. So you're gonna have like governing bodies coming in here a lot more because a lot more dollars are going to be here. You're gonna have a lot more brands coming in here on the D2C side. I believe it's not just going to be B2B folks. Like you're going to see cell phone companies, luxury retail, auto, airlines, loyalty programs for all your business travelers. Like all that's going to come here. I'm shocked it's not here already.
Mhm.
And then the third one is you're going to have more creators coming in to commercialize LinkedIn. So all three of those areas are about to light up in 2025.
Well, that's exciting. Uh, can't wait to see like my feed on LinkedIn populated with all of these brands and what they are trying to put out. It's gonna be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sales because you told me you specialize in sales, right?
Yep.
This year I've been noticing this new thing called GTM engineer really popping off on
Mhm.
LinkedIn right now. It seems like everybody's talking about it. So, for example, can you explain a little bit what it is and going back to the old way of doing things and how is it now?
Yeah, so traditional business or traditional go to market models were very siloed. You had sales doing their own thing, marketing doing their own thing, and then if there was anything to do with systems, whether it's marketing systems or sales systems, that was even its own thing. The modern GTM focus is how do you bring all those areas together, and that's just strategically, right? And then the other half of the equation with a GTM engineer, where that piece really comes in, is how do you bring it to life with the modern parameters of go to market. So, for example, before I could have an outreach or sales loft account and then run a billion sequences on email, and that worked. But then everyone started doing it, and it ruined cold email for everybody. Volume no longer mattered. People are just putting everything in their spam filter. So, how did we respond as a market? Google and Outlook, for example, made it harder to land in the primary inbox. More and more outbound domains, for example, got flagged as spamming and spam cannons, they call them. So, now what's happened is you have this notion of like domain warming, where you can rotate different domains so that you've got a better chance to show up in someone's primary inbox. And that's just on email. On the phone side, you've got things like dialers. On the CRM side, they've now put in so many AI features so you can enrich things faster, get data signals faster, and now you've got billions of tools that can also tell you how to do intent signals across how people consume your content over the internet. So when you layer in all these different things, and this is just the sales window, marketing is a whole other different one. You do need people who have a good systems knowledge on how all these things link together. And that's where that modern GTM engineer is really coming into the mix.
So essentially, this role is like taking ownership of all of this, kind of like the sales process from beginning to end. That's what I'm understanding, right?
Yeah, you need to bring in talent that has a good idea of how the revenue operation works. So that's where RevOps is just blown up. You want to look at tools like Clay. Clay is like a massive tool right now, big partner of ours as well. I have nothing but love for the Clay folks. I genuinely don't think there's anything they can't do for your revenue backbone. We have some really cool things we're about to launch with them, by the way. But I think with Clay and tools like Clay and how they sync up with everything for domain warming, for your CRM, for data enrichment, for all those things, that's really where you need to get your GTM engineers like trained up. Make sure they know how to use those big tools like Clay and other AI platforms like that that can sync up your entire go-to-market function in one click.
Yeah, and it's impressive that seems like every day there's a new tool to learn, or like a new software company that's onto this GTM world. How do you, like, if I'm a software company, for example, what would you advise uh, we like a company do if they want to start getting into this kind of like new world of B2B go to market? Like, what would be like the strategy?
Yeah. Oh, that's a tough question only because there's like so many angles to it. My big checklist for me is like depending on how you call. Like some companies like to just do cold email, some like to cold call. Very few do social selling well. So to me, those are the big three. You need to get the modern approach on how do you get cold calls done correctly. How do you do social selling correctly, and how do you do cold email correctly? Clay tools like Clay can probably help you with the social selling and cold email side better than most. Tools like Orem and Kixi and Nooks can probably help you out on the dialer side. Like folks like Just Call and those types of companies have done a really good job of verifying phone numbers to make sure people are legit who they are, and then dialing at a rate where only people who are supposed to pick up are picking up. I believe all three channels are alive and well. A lot of times people say cold calling is dead or cold email is dead or this is dead. I just think people aren't doing them right because there's plenty of hundreds of millions of dollars being generated by all three of those platforms. One thing I've seen companies shy away from, which I'm kind of surprised by, are live events. I don't know. I mean, the
Mm.
reset button on COVID is done, folks. So people are going to live events. They're meeting people. They're hosting dinners. They're going back to the human side of whining and dining clients. I don't know. That sort of disappeared for a couple of years. Fine, but it's always been a good way to do business. So if you don't have an event strategy as part of your go to market function, you're really missing out. That's where a lot of people go with an open mind to try new things, experiment with new technologies, new things they want to buy. They go to events for that reason. They're in the mindset to learn and discover more. So if you're not part of an event strategy right now, that's also a big miss.
Wow, that makes so much sense, and I didn't ever thought about that, but people nowadays are craving more and more for in real life events,
Yeah,
and it would make sense that like you want to throw an event, get people together and discuss whatever it is that you're doing.
right. I agree. I think there's like events is where you're not, there's no back to back meetings, Zooms, and I'm bouncing in and out and context switching. You have dedicated focus at an event for anywhere from 1 to 4 days. Why would you not want to be a part of that conversation? Right.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, so yeah, I mean, we've talked about GTM, sales, B2B influencers, D2C influencers, social media. Is there any other thing that you would like to discuss, or I don't know if you have any like final thoughts?
No, my biggest thing is it all starts with your mindset and goals. A lot of the people, a lot of the creators I talk to, or want to be creators as well. They actually just run with the motions. They're not planning ahead for what they want. They're just doing things because they were told, or they read a blog, or they read a post. So my big advice to everybody is set a goal for what you want to get done, and then build your work life integration around that. It's not about balance; it's about integration. So if you want to go make it as a creator and make big money and all that kind of stuff, you need to realize it's going to come at the expense of your personal life. You can't have the fun stuff when you're building something as like a business. On the flip side, your goal might be I just want to spend more time with family and friends. I'm so sick of working. That's totally okay. That's a whole different kind of happiness. But you need to realize you're probably not going to get the big side hustle project or the promotion at work. But that's okay because your goal was to go spend more time. So I think if you just build some intention around what we're trying to do or what you're trying to do, that's my number one piece of advice to everybody. Build a goal and build intention towards it. That is where the real success will come from.
Beautiful. So yeah, it's time to start posting. It's time to get the ball rolling. Like if you're not on LinkedIn and you have a B2B offer, like you definitely need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And more things are coming this next year, which are going to be exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it was great to meet you, Anish. Great to have you on the podcast. And I'm sure like everybody's gonna be taking away some of the stuff that we've been talking about.
Good. No, I'm glad. And just so you know, we are about to drop a Wishly incubator for micro influencers, where folks who are very seasoned creators on the Wishly roster will be coaching the new folks on how to grow their followers really fast. So if anyone's interested in learning about the incubator, shoot me a message on the DM. I'll put you on our wait list.
Yeah, for sure. Like, where can people find you on social?
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the best.
LinkedIn.
That's probably the best place to find me. And then besides that, you can always shoot me an email at Aneesh at wishlygroup.ca.
Okay, awesome. I will make sure to put all the links in the description. So yeah, thank you again, and yeah, it was very fun, man.
All right, appreciate it, man. Thank you.